Shelley Ruiz with Westlands Water District, Associate Resources Analyst. And I'm joined here today with my supervisor. So I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, Kitty Campbell, Supervisor of Resources. I'm with Westlands Water District. We also have a few members from Westlands on the line. Alma, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Alma Antuna, Westlands Water District, Associate Resource Analyst. We'll pass it over to Elizabeth.
Elizabeth Jonathan, Public Affairs Representative for Westlands Water District.
And then we also have our project partners with us today. So we'll go ahead and start off with Vista Consulting.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lydia Chan-Nate, and I'm the Vice President of Public Affairs at Vista Consulting.
Then we also have a project partner, Civic Well, with us. If you could please introduce yourself, Grace.
Hi, I'm Grace Person. I'm a Senior Water Project Manager with Civic Well. I'm excited to be here.
Then we also have a project partner with Sequoia Riverlands Trust. Logan, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, thanks, Shelley. Logan Robertson Hecker, Executive Director, Sequoia Riverlands Trust. Happy to be here with you all today.
And then we also have the LEAP Institute here, and Ray is representing their institute today. So Ray, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Good afternoon. Ray Leon, founder and executive director of the LEAP Institute, and for ID purposes, also the mayor of the city of Huron. Saludos.
Thank you, Ray. And then we also have Linguistica here, who does interpreting and translation services. Raina, if you can introduce yourself.
You are on mute. We can't hear you. Can anyone else hear her? Okay.
Maybe we can move to EKI and then get back to Raina.
Sounds good.
And then we have our team EKI here, Kristen and Sarah, if you'd like to introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Kristen Lindhart, a hydrogeologist with EKI, and we help support the development of the application materials. And I have my coworker, Sarah Grenade here. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, Sarah Garande, also EKI Water Resources. We've
Testing,
been
1, 2, 3, testing.
Yes,
We can hear you.
we've been
Can you
testing.
hear me now?
Yes.
We could hear you, Raina. You could go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm so sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay,
Yeah, we
great. All right. Sorry, technology. It'll creep up on you. But Reina Rodriguez, owner of Linguistica Interpreting and Translation. I had started off so funny and said, or as you would say, in my world, hola, ¿cómo están? Not funny anymore after that, but I've been helping with language accessibility throughout the Central Valley or beyond California for the past 16 years. We help with Spanish, Hmong, Punjabi, Mandarin, Cantonese, Arabic, and literally whatever language needs we have in the community. Some are harder to meet than others because of demand, but it has been an honor to serve several of the entities that are on here. So yeah, just happy to serve. Thank you.
And that's everybody from our team, Shauna.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, why don't you begin your presentation and we can go from there.
All right, I'll be doing all the talking, so raise your hand if you can't hear me or give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay. Perfect, thank you. So good afternoon, I'm Kitty Campbell with Westlands Water District and Westlands Water District Groundwater Sustainability Agency. I'm here to present our proposal on the West Side Subbasin Multi-Benefit Land Repurposing Program. Next slide, please. Westlands Water District became a GSA in July of 2016 and serves as the primary GSA for the West Side Subbasin. In order to achieve our land repurposing goals, we are teaming up with 5 committed partners, and I will go ahead and let the partners introduce themselves, starting with LEAP, and we'll go in order of the icons on the slide. Ray, that would be you.
Oh, wait, I had 2 mutes on. Only one was activated. So Ray Leon with the LEAP Institute, and we work with communities to achieve economic, environmental, and climate justice. In the past 5 years, we've been developing different programs that are innovative, that have impact in those 3 elements of economy, environment, and climate. One of our most popular programs or hallmark programs is the Green Raiteros, which is the first electric vehicle ride-sharing program in the nation. And we use those vehicles to transport farm worker families to their non-emergency medical appointments, social services, and just recently started a tangent to provide students their rides to college and university. But within the past 3 years, we've been doing more programming in the arena of workforce development, skills building. We've been able to complete 2 cohorts in solar installation, 1 cohort in regenerative organic ag, the program we call the Rogue program. And we will soon be starting a cohort in both EV charger maintenance and installation, as well as electric vehicle maintenance. We're looking to so that we could advance skills in our area. Am I going beyond? Thought I heard somebody.
Yes, if you don't mind, Ray. I know you weren't
Go
on
ahead.
our initial call. We were just introducing ourselves. I appreciate all the detail. If we could go on to Civic Well.
Thank you for cutting me off.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
Hi, everybody. Again, my name is Grace Person. I'm with an organization called Civic Well, formerly known as the Local Government Commission. We are super happy to be here on this team to support Westlands Water District in their multi-benefit land repurposing program grant application. A little bit about us, I'll be really brief. We're a 40-year-old organization that really works to support sustainable policies and leaders in communities that implement them. You know, we're really striving to inspire, equip, and connect and cultivate civic leadership for local innovation and community change. So again, thank you for having us here today. I'm going to pass it back.
Thank you. And Sequoia Riverlands Trust.
Thank you. Logan Robertson Hecker, Sequoia Riverlands Trust. As the accredited regional nonprofit land trust, our mission is to conserve the lands and waters of California's heartland, and we're expanding on more than 20 years of conservation leadership in the region. Our vision is business, agriculture, and a broader spectrum of the community working together to create and sustain sound land and water management practices to support thriving ecosystems and to advance our region's prosperity. And we're really excited to be partnering with Westlands Water District and all the other partners in this team to hopefully advance this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. And Linguistica.
Thank you. Hopefully my sound is good. Okay. Linguistica, interpreting and translation has been very happy, and honestly, we have had such great satisfaction with just knowing that we're not just a language accessibility agency, but we also have been connecting with community in a more intricate way. We help with lots of community development in terms of helping community members step into leadership roles or participate civically. And I feel that we've been able to do that because we go out into the community, we help with outreach, we help with community building workshops, and we participate in a lot of meetings. And I think it's just, they get to see us here and there throughout their transition and along the years, and I think that that's been very helpful. I am community, and I think being raised in a Latino home where both my parents speak primarily Spanish, being a from a farm worker community with my mother and father working in the fields, I think that it really has allowed me to understand and really empathize with community and understand how to speak with community. So I think that level of trust of just knowing and really being able to center their needs above all has been very helpful in just creating a good partnership and letting the community know that, yes, it takes talent to be a simultaneous interpreter, but more than anything, I think that the biggest talent that we bring to the table is being human and humanizing them and centering their importance. So 3 branches that we focus on are interpreting, translation, and public outreach. And we involve public outreach primarily because we saw that there was a big gap. Oftentimes we were called into meetings and there wasn't a need for our services there because there wasn't the type of participation that was needed. So we stopped and said, you know what, once we understand, maybe we needed more outreach, maybe we needed different communications, a different strategy, but twice I just said, no, you know what, let's sit down, let's talk about this, because if we really want to have meaningful conversations and truly involve the community, then that's going to take more than just, we tried, we send out emails, we put it on the newspaper, but they're not here. So that's when we decided to branch out and start doing community outreach, so that stopped being an issue. I said, if we don't have people at the meeting because outreach didn't work out, now we can totally say, my fault, I didn't do my job, I didn't go out, I didn't meet face to face. So that really helped with just developing those trusting relationships. So that's one of the reasons why we started doing public outreach as well.
Okay, thank you. And Vista Consulting, if you could briefly introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi again, Lydia Chan-Nate with Vista Consulting. We are a public affairs, government relations, and PR firm with a specialized focus on the San Joaquin Valley. Happy to be here.
Perfect, thank you. We also have 5 committed collaborators. We have this County of Fresno serving as a GSA as a collaborator, the City of Huron, the City of Fireball, the City of Avenal, and the United Associations of Plumbers, Pipes, and Refrigerated Fitters, local number 246. And they will all be assisting with community outreach and education to ensure word about our program is reaching the local communities. Moving on to the next slide. The West Side Subbasin is located in the western portion of the San Joaquin Valley groundwater basin. It is comprised of 972 square miles, which consists primarily of irrigated farmland. The subbasin has been identified as a critically overdrafted basin and a high priority subbasin. Therefore, the West Side Subbasin Groundwater Sustainability Plan was developed, adopted, and submitted to the Department of Water Resources in 2020. And in 2022, it was clarified and amended and resubmitted to the department in 2022. I'll also note that we have received a recommendation for approval from the Department of Water Resources on the amended and clarified groundwater sustainability plan, but we have not received our official approval letter yet. Virtually our entire subbasin is considered disadvantaged or severely disadvantaged communities, with several communities relying on groundwater as a backup supply in the basin. And additionally, Cal EPA has mapped the entire subbasin as environmentally disadvantaged, making the needs a high priority. Maintaining a reliable water supply and supporting our community is of paramount importance to Westlands and our partners, and that's what brings us here today. In order to achieve our sustainability goals, we have a land repurposing vision to develop a subbasin-wide land repurposing program that provides guidance to identifying, prioritizing, and implementing the best suited repurposing strategies in the best suited locations, provides a platform for interested parties to participate in a strategic planning process of the program, and to ultimately implement projects to repurpose agricultural lands to reduce reliance on groundwater while providing community health, economic well-being, water supply, habitat, and climate benefits. The objectives of our program are to preserve and enhance the long-term viability of our groundwater resources within the subbasin, reducing groundwater overdraft, reduce subsidence, avoid undesirable results as defined in the groundwater sustainability plan, and improve flexibility of management of water supplies throughout the subbasin. We envision this as a three-step process to developing a land repurposing plan, implementing the highest priority projects identified by the team, and demonstrating how land repurposing can both reduce groundwater use and generate regional benefits. Next slide. Carrying forward our land repurposing program will require a united effort from the GSA, program partners, program collaborators. The program will be developed under the guidance of two committees and implemented by the GSA Board of Directors. There will be a steering committee made up of GSA representatives, project partners, sub-consultants, and interested parties. This committee will organize the land repurposing efforts, develop the plan, review potential projects and proposals, and will advise the Groundwater Sustainability Board on which actions to take. There will also be an outreach advisory committee made up of GSA representatives, project partners, program collaborators, and sub-consultants. This committee will develop an outreach strategy and actively engage the community to receive input and plan on the projects. And finally, the GSA board will execute the necessary actions to put the plan into place and implement projects. Next slide, please. The first task will be to develop a multi-benefit ag land repurposing plan for the subbasin to support the groundwater sustainability through land repurposing, while also providing environmental, economic, and health benefits to the community. The plan will have four major components: a project selection tool and ranking system, a project application and protocols, description of all disadvantaged communities and severely disadvantaged communities within the subbasin and their key needs that need to be addressed through this program, and outreach and communication approach. The plan will be developed by the GSA, working through the partners, collaborators, community members, and technical consultants. I'll note that the main partner on this task is Vista Consulting. Moving on to task 2, using the project selection and ranking system developed under task 1, our steering committee will prioritize projects for implementation. As shown on the map to the right, repurposed projects will be considered based on areas with good recharge potential and those that are prone to subsidence. Under Task 2, we will formalize project partner roles, engage community members, encourage landowners in high priority areas to apply for the program. Once the projects have been selected, we will undertake the project design, conduct project impact analysis on marginalized communities, acquire required permits, develop CEQA and NEPA documents, and establish monitoring objectives. Partners and collaborators will play a key role in engaging with community members and sharing their experience with habitat restoration. Our main partners that will support us on Task 2 include Sequoia Riverlands Trust, Vista Consulting, and the County of Fresno. Moving on to Task 3. Task 3 of our proposal is to implement the land repurposing projects on lands that are least viable for irrigated agriculture selected under Task 2. Projects will be focused on reducing the subbasin's overall groundwater use and creating secondary benefits. Westlands will allocate grant funding towards selected projects, which will be carried out through guidance from the GSA partners, collaborators, community members, and technical consultants or contractors. The main project partner in this activity is Sequoia Riverlands Trust. Task 4 is a proposal is to support project partners. We have 5 committed project partners, and we will rely on them to ensure all deliverables are met. Project partners will provide in-kind contributions, including serving on the steering and outreach advisory committees, support grants and project management, help conduct outreach, provide technical support for conservation activities, and retain displaced farm workers. Grant funds will supplement the project partners' in-kind contributions. We will also develop a system for tracking project partners' reimbursement time and expenditures. Our partners that will support us on Task 4 include all of them: LEAP, Civic Well, Sequoia Riverlands Trust, Vista Consulting, and Linguistica. One unique way we will be engaging with our communities and assisting disadvantaged communities is through a gray water training and pre-apprenticeship program conducted by our partners LEAP in collaboration with the City of Huron and UA Local 246. This program will provide profitable new jobs for displaced farm workers that were removed from agricultural lands and provide necessary services to the City of Huron. LEAP and UA Local 246 will provide training to up to 20 displaced workers in residential gray water system installation, leading to apprenticeship tests with the union. Participants will install gray water systems in Huron homes, helping them to comply with the city's new gray water ordinance. They will also have an opportunity to receive their GED and driver's license if needed, so that they can pursue their new careers. This program will provide participants with a new livelihood and a community with a skilled workforce prepared to implement the city's sustainability goals. I'll also note in the Q&A section, LEAP will also highlight this program. Moving on to Task 5. Task 5 of our proposal is to conduct community outreach, provide educational opportunities, and provide training opportunities. It will be critical for us to connect with the communities, and local input will be necessary for the successfulness of project development, and landowners' buy-in will be necessary for repurposing. The GSA and partners Civic Well, Sequoia Riverlands Trust, LEAP, Linguistica, and Vista Consulting will hold a variety of educational and outreach events with opportunities to connect in multiple language through multiple platforms. Funding for this Funding for partner work is included in task 4, and that's why the budget in task 5 is smaller. Moving on to task 6, to ensure the projects are meeting their desired goals and providing at least 10 years of benefit, we will be monitoring the changes to land use and water consumption, groundwater levels and quality, and land surface elevations. Monitoring will be carried out by Westlands in coordination with Sequoia Riverlands Trust. If monitoring data suggests that we're not achieving the benefits as expected, we will evaluate and make proper modifications. Next slide, please. In addition to benefiting groundwater sustainability in the subbasin, the projects implemented will also benefit resource communities. Primary benefits will include improved reliability of domestic wells, improved air quality due to decreased exposure to dust relative to the current conditions, or hypohazards fouling that result without this plan. This is significant as many community members rely on groundwater for their domestic needs, and high asthma in the area is noted as a concern throughout the subbasin. Additionally, engagement with the land repurposing program through partners Civic Well will provide priority community residents a greater voice and training that could be expanded to provide new economic opportunities. Next slide. Oh, perfect. Thank you. To wrap up, our project team has a long recorded success record. We have land repurposing experience that includes over 13,000 acres of formerly ag lands held by multiple owners, secured conservation and solar development agreements, restored habitat, protected over 40,000 acres with conservation programs, and have led over 120 initiatives to improve community and environmental health. Finally, in the last 7 years, we have received a total of 7 grants totaling $19 million. So we have the experience necessary to successfully administer a grant. We have the experience, now we need the funding. We are counting on the DOC support of our program so that we have the resources to move forward towards sustainability and to serve our communities. We are confident that we will have a successful land repurposing program, which will get us one step closer to reaching sustainability in the West Side Subbasin. Next slide. Are there any questions, or do you want to move over to the questions that were submitted directly to us?
Thank you. All right. Yeah, let's open it up to the reviewers. Are there any questions? Kaylee, Anthony, or Jamie?
I have a couple of questions.
Go for it.
Yeah, thank you. So the first is, if you go through your tool and you find that maybe the top 5 areas that you think you could repurpose all have, they're privately owned lands, is there something in there to incentivize private owners to participate in this, or are you kind of going to be looking at just people who are willing to volunteer, or like public lands?
I'll go ahead and answer that, and anyone can jump in. I think we will focus on people who are willing to volunteer and offer their land. But one big incentive is, one of the projects we think we'd like to include in the plan is groundwater recharge. And so generally, if a grower owns a section of land and they're willing to provide a quarter section for this project, they receive the benefits of improved groundwater conditions for their surrounding land. So there is a secondary benefit. And if groundwater conditions remain high in the district and in the subbasin, then there's an opportunity to plan in the future of with their growing decisions. So, I mean, most of the landowners we're looking to work with are growers. And so there are strategies that we can implement so that they're willing to use their land for the program.
Thank you. And then I had one more when I was reading through the grant application. Mentioned that you had successfully started a program that basically allows folks who long-term but not totally repurpose some land to hold on to their allocation credits on that land. And I'm wondering, are they then allowed to like trade or sell those credits, or how does that work?
So the program you're referring to is related to surface water and groundwater. And it essentially requires that if someone repurposes their land to solar or to something similar, they have the ability to retain their surface water and groundwater rights to that land. And generally, our reliable surface water allocation is about 40%. It might be a little bit higher, but growers need that allocation to sustain their crop.
Mhm.
So previously, they might have been fallowing half their land, and then the other land was to maintain their trees. And so they were looking at their reliability. If they repurpose that land to solar, they still want to use their surface water and groundwater for the same purpose. But to answer your question, they do have the ability to move their surface water around. They do not have the ability to trade their groundwater.
Okay, so they could still use their groundwater, but they can't just trade it away or sell it. So if
Correct,
they do
our rules don't
repurpose.
allow for it.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Appreciate that. Those are my only two questions.
Thank you.
Yes, I do have one question in regard to your project selection and ranking system or tool. Is that pretty much just conceptual in nature at this point, or do you have a pretty good understanding of what that tool looks like, what actually goes into that tool, and or possibly you may have a system or tool like that already in place that you've used in another program and maybe the success that you've had with that? Maybe you can expand on that description for me a little bit.
Yeah, I'll be happy to answer the question, and then I'll allow others such as Elizabeth to join in. But the ranking system, I would say, is conceptual, and it's focused on the groundwater sustainability plan, the metrics that we've adopted in that plan that we feel are important to being able to sustain groundwater levels. But first and foremost, we need to go through the process of getting input from the communities and doing the necessary outreach so that ranking system, I think in the future could change.
Yeah, I'll just jump into that latter point. We're intentional about not defining all the parameters or the projects or everything from the get-go, but rather doing some outreach, some first rounds of outreach, and hearing from the community is starting to establish that relationship of what the community wants, and then reflect those priorities in the ranking system, and then go back to the community and make sure that we captured what they were saying adequately. So we're intentional about that, and hope that it reflects not only the best areas of recharge or the best lands geographically per our parameters and per our projects, but really intentionally reflects what the community wants to see too.
Okay, and one last question, just a follow-up question with that. Do you see that this system would be kind of like piggybacking some of the sustainable management criteria for your GSP or part of this Sigma program, you know, as far as looking at your sustainability goals within the subbasin? Are there some major criteria that you're looking at as far as maybe being touched upon with this tool that relates to that's the sustainable management criteria that's defined in Sigma?
I think the simple answer to that question is yes. We tend to have a lot of focus around subsidence prone areas in the subbasin, and their relation to critical infrastructure, which is the San Luis Canal or the California Aqueduct. So our plan has put a lot of emphasis on protecting that critical infrastructure because it provides drinking water for basically everyone south of the subbasin. And then there are communities within the subbasin that rely on that conveyance system for their surface water. So I would say that that is our main metric that we are protecting against in everything that we've implemented since the adoption of the first plan in 2020. And that's what we've been doing the last couple years. The district has been focusing on purchasing land in those vulnerable areas to ensure we are reducing reliance on groundwater. And I think this land repurposing program takes it that next step is how do we target the best land that's vulnerable to subsidence, that can also be repurposed to something like recharge or to solar, or to what other ideas we might get through our outreach process. But I would say specifically subsidence, and if you protect against subsidence, you also protect your groundwater levels. It goes hand in hand, as well as groundwater storage, groundwater quality. I mean, you protect every metric if you can prevent subsidence.
Okay, yeah, so you are anticipating that criteria is probably going to be receiving maybe a favorable weighting in the process of ranking different types of benefits, to subbasin as far as your project selection.
Well, if I may add a little bit of nuance as we go into talking to the community, our interest may be groundwater recharge. And I think, I just experienced with the community knowing that's something that's important. But what that looks like in the ranking criteria is what could change. For example, does it look like a recharge basin? Is there attitudes favor or against recharge basin? Do they care if it's along the canal near their community, or do they not care if it's near their community? Or, are there preferences like that? Or would they prefer the recharge to be projects that aren't so visible, for example? So I think, while we're making sure that the criteria in our GSP and all of those are aligned, and first and foremost, there's a lot of nuance on how things get implemented, or if there's multi-benefit to those recharge projects with habitat or with other types of conservation. So I think those would be some of the criteria we'd be looking at the community to help inform our decisions.
Okay, thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Grace would like to add to that
Yes,
response.
I would like to add something. As we go through this process around our criteria and our ranking, round one of MLRP awardees are in the process, and the statewide support team may have some information for us to reference and look at and, gauge some of our items for our ranking criteria that can also help inform ours, frankly. And so that's something that, we will be considering as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hey there, this is Kaylee. Can you hear me all right? My signal's a little weak.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Perfect. I had two questions. One, I wanted to just go back to the gray water training program, and I wanted to ask if you had other programs if you had experience with this kind of training program. What was that experience like? What do you expect the uptake to be for that program? Just give us, I'm not too familiar with that type of program, so I just wanted to get some context of, how well it would be received among, with the targeted audience and what your experience was there.
I'd be happy to take that one on.
Thank you.
So I'm actually a recipient of a gray water certificate from back in the days, probably, I don't know, 2012, 2013, that actually Civic Wow sponsored. And back then they were called the Local Government Commission. Anyhow, I took it in Fresno, and I was the only person from Fresno to have taken it. So when it came time to actually implement a real, gray water system, they wanted to do it in Fresno, and I was the only guy from Fresno at the time that lived there. So we did it in the house that I was leasing off of a friend. And so basically that house in Fresno is the first house in the valley, I think, that has a certified, like a legit gray water system. I've always been eco-oriented. I'm a long-time environmental justice advocate, air quality policy advocate since 2002. And so I took interest in the gray water systems because not only at the end of the day, it saves money for the families, right? They don't have to use the expensive water to water the trees. They use the gray water, which is the washing machine for clothes, not the washing machine for dishes. It's the clothes washing machine, the restroom sink, and the restroom shower. All of that is gray water. Everything else is black water. And so that is set up so that it could water the trees, which is, I think, critical, because if we're talking about climate resilience, we're talking about carbon sequestration. We're talking about drought resilience, drought resistance. And we're also talking about saving money, especially for the communities like Huron, which is one of the 4 poorest cities in the state of California, yet in the county with the highest ag revenues 2 years in a row. It's about not just helping families save money, reduce greenhouse gases, sequester carbon, but at the end of the day, save the state water. Because what is not being used on the trees will continue to go in the canal for farming or whatever else. And, less demand on the water system means less energy being consumed by the water pumps, and the benefits are on and on. And so I'm also on the Environmental Justice Advisory Committee. So I've been pushing that gray water systems be recognized and be provided the resources, because they do reduce greenhouse gas emissions, so that hopefully in the future, this is something that throughout the state could be implemented, and we become more resilient against the climate crisis that we face on a daily basis. So that's, and like I said earlier, well, probably not on this talk, but environmental justice is not environmental justice if you're not engaging the people and empowering the people. One of the ways that we could empower the people in the San Joaquin Valley, especially during a time when orchards are going up in thousands of acres per orchard, if not bigger, and we know that almonds are not labor intensive, so it's taking jobs out of the local economies, and yet it's using, it's a lot of water there. But also the solar farms, solar parks, also labor intensive in the beginning, but not so much later. A lot of farm land is going out of production. And so what are we going to do if the statistics are 2/3 of farm workers in the country are in California? And I would argue that perhaps 2/3 of those farm workers in California are in our region, right? And so, if there's 2 farm workers per 1 job already, what's going to happen with what we see going down right now? The only thing that we could do and that we should be working towards is upskilling farm workers, providing them the ability to pursue a job long-term, and hopefully in labor, a high-road job, so that they could be able to maintain their families and live a good life. So if the 20 people that we train in Huron, because we are one of the first cities before San Francisco, I may add, to pass a gray water ordinance, and we have 53 homes currently, brand new single family homes that have our gray water ready. So they just need to get finished off. So, but we also have a bunch of older homes that have crawl space. So there's going to be 2 versions of gray water system installations. And so, but they are going to be essentially trained in plumbing. That's why we have our plumbing and pipe fitters partner, the union, on board, because the idea is to have one of their retired union guys come through and teach the class, engage the people, and with Linguistica, we'll simultaneously translate it and empower as the maximum 20 that we can empower. And I'm hoping this will set a good pilot to do it again in the future and not just in Huron.
That's great. Thank you very much. And I appreciate how the program's being built off of prior programs. So it's like you have the systems in place. Other question, I was curious if you guys had any 218 revenues in the past and in place to support program. I know some other grantees have mentioned that they have kind of funding. Some do and some don't have funding coming in to support projects or maintenance or different components of the grant program. And I wondered if we had those as well.
Shelley, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the questions was specific to finances, right? Did we talk about our Prop 218 in that response?
No, we didn't.
Okay. I can highlight it. We do Prop 218 hearings for our land-based charges and our water rates. But if in the event that we were successful and we received this grant, what we would do is we would identify this as a project that needs to be funded. If the full grant amount isn't enough to implement the projects we'd like to build, and we would just include it in our rate structure, and our costs to deliver water through our O&M rate would just slightly increase, but that would be done through a Prop 218 hearing, which we do every year.
Great, thank you.
No problem.
So, kind of building off of that question is, could you describe, because it sounds like you have done quite a bit of work in this space already, could you describe what the impacts would be if you were to not receive this funding?
Well, I can tell you that I'll go ahead and answer the question and I'll allow others to jump in, but retiring land and repurposing it is extremely costly. So if we were not to receive the funding, then we wouldn't be able to develop a plan and we wouldn't be able to implement projects that ultimately benefit the basin in the scale that we have envisioned. I mean, we are continuously implementing a repurposing strategy from a Sigma perspective in maintaining groundwater levels. But as we have envisioned in our full repurposing plan program, we wouldn't be able to do it at the scale that we've envisioned because we just don't have endless resources.
And I'll just plug in, the added benefits of Ray's program and the training for people. As we know, land repurposing has an impact, and a lot of our communities are heavily dependent on agriculture for employment and as an economic base. And so with the reduction of land in active production, there comes a reduction in jobs, which affects some of our most marginalized and disenfranchised communities. And so the addition of having a component that will allow to train some people, not as many, as might be needed, but at least some people would not be there either.
I think we need to have a pilot to train farm workers in gray water systems and to actually implement. We at the city passed an ordinance, which is, I think, to some extent revolutionary, but it shouldn't be revolutionary. I think every city that is in an area that could be able to take on such a underground water recharge, even if it trickles at a time with the multiple homes, there's multiple benefits. But if we're able to employ, empower, and assist the farm worker community keep them from having the negative impact that is happening now. You know, our region is already identified as the Appalachians of the West. Nowadays, the Appalachians aren't even the Appalachians. You know, the federal government has taken care of them. You know, this is, I think, a drop in the bucket. It's a small nod to what could happen at a bigger level. And I think California, as we always do, we lead. This is part of that leadership, to initiate something that should be happening in throughout the state of California, and I figure in other parts of the country too.
Thank you. And I think it's such a vast area that I think that this is really going to give a great opportunity for outreach and communication. The education with community, I think, is going to be the greatest benefit that we're going, well, that's my personal opinion, but just the community feeling the sense of inclusion and involvement is going to be fantastic. And I think that that's a lot of what is typically hurt in projects is there isn't enough capital or funding for meaningful outreach and communications, and doing it in language, really taking into consideration the languages that are spoken or most frequent in the communities that we serve, and making sure that we're setting the time and the proper mediums to be able to have one-on-ones and really face-to-face conversations, and bringing the experts in the matter to be able to speak to the community, who many times are monolingual English only speakers and would otherwise have a really hard time to convey their messaging and really be able to share information. So I think that that's another side that oftentimes gets forgotten, how meaningful it is to be able to build that trust and that rapport, and not just, show up in community's backyard, even though you've been having 20, 30 meetings and doing a lot of planning, but many times because of the lack of outreach, maybe the community didn't get involved and didn't feel as informed as they should have been. And then when projects show up, that's many times the reason why community doesn't feel like they're welcoming of those projects, because they don't understand or they weren't necessarily involved in the process and decision making. So I think that's another benefit.
I do have one quick question, just piggybacking on outreach engagement and retraining possibly displaced workers. To see that, the total application here is close to $9 million, but we're only appropriating $50,000 to outreach and engagement and training. Do you see any flexibility in this budget, especially if you're seeing more workers displaced due to some of these projects, to repurpose more money towards outreach engagement and specifically retraining for displaced workers?
Yes, I think we do have some flexibility, and I'll just note that a lot of our funds are actually in task 4. So there's a larger budget associated with outreach embedded in task 4. We've just itemized it out specific to task 5 at the 50,000. So when you look at both tasks, we're at 550, but we do have flexibility, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, because the training the farm workers is included under that task for the partner support capacities.
Okay, thank you.
Great. I am cognizant of our time, and I want to make sure that we get through the standard questions that we sent you. Keeping in mind that you may have answered some of these questions in your presentation or in response to other questions that we've asked. This will give you an opportunity, if you have anything else to add it at this time. If you don't feel like you have anything else to add to a specific question, you can let us know that as well. So the first question is, what is your fiscal and administrative capacity to manage this grant, and what controls do you have in place to ensure that grant dollars are spent efficiently and managed responsibly?
I can answer that question. So Westlands Water District, GSA, we're made up of 118 staff members who are qualified to manage, develop, and successfully implement the activities of the land repurposing plan. Our staff consists a wide range of technical expertise, which includes accounting, business management, engineering, public outreach, civil and electrical maintenance, resources analysis, scientific analysis, and information technology. We also have a finance and administration division, which has many financial tracking mechanisms already developed, as they're currently managing finances with over 30 sub-consultant teams. In addition, we are experienced and very capable of ensuring grant dollars are spent efficiently and managed responsibly by the establishment of both fiscal and administrative controls. For example, Westlands GSA has an established bank account, which allows for tracking financials. For this purpose, our staff tracks grant expenses and revenues separately for each grant, and all grant expenses being claimed for reimbursement are reviewed by management staff for compliance with the terms of the grant. And as grant revenues are received, the grant revenues are coded either as federal or state financial reporting and audit purposes. And administrative controls include meeting regularly with consultants to ensure the scope of work is completed in a timely manner and within budget, and that all project deliverables are also reviewed by management staff for compliance with the terms of the grant. And with these controls and fiscal and administrative controls in place, Westlands has successfully, as mentioned before, administered 7 grants ranging from $100,000 to $7.6 million in the last 7 years, which totals approximately $19 million of funding.
Great. Describe the partnerships and collaborations you've built or plan to build to support your work, and how you will utilize those connections to plan, develop, and implement land repurposing projects throughout your region. How will each partner contribute to the work conducted under the grant? And I know you've talked a little bit about this, but if you have anything that you would like to add, please feel free.
I think we've talked about partnerships quite a bit. I think the only thing to add is a little bit about the collaborators. We have a few of the cities listed, and those were the cities that we were able to get letters in on time, but I'm sure that the rest of the surrounding cities, Avenal, Hanford, Lemoore, Fireball, Fireball did get it in time, sorry. But some of these other surrounding cities in our communities would also be willing to help with outreach to the communities, and so I think that's important. The one I'll also highlight is the plumbers and pipe fitters union. Getting that tie-in to apprenticeship and long-term employment is hugely important, and as that's connected to the training that LEAP will provide.
All right. Go ahead.
So sorry, I would probably just want to add that throughout the years and throughout different projects that we have been able to collaborate in, we have built great relationships out in places like Tranquility and Cantua and San Joaquin and Mendota. So I think that the relationships are there to really piggyback on and continue building. And we know this is home, right? So these are areas that we know, that we care about, and where we feel very comfortable going into community. And I think that on its own is really helpful.
All right. A primary goal of the program is to prioritize benefits to disadvantaged communities. How have you engaged with disadvantaged communities in your region in the past? And how do you intend to engage and collaborate with disadvantaged communities through your grant work? And again, I know you touched on this a bit in your presentation, but if you have anything that you'd like to add.
I think I'd like to allow Grace with Civic Well to provide a little more insight as to the process that we plan to utilize for our community engagement.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So CivicWell's work really is grounded in this space of getting communities engaged through outreach. And part of that effort really is about getting a sense of where people are in their understanding of issues and potential projects. And so what we do with our outreach and engagement efforts really is to work with trusted partners like Linguistica and other community-based organizations like LEAP and others in the area to understand the community needs and their preferences for communication, the preferences for outreach, their preferences for engagement. And what that can look like in a lot of ways is a group that gives us input and advice on the best strategies to do those activities. We like to do listening sessions and interviews with trusted community members who can help us understand what are key issues and unknowns that we should be watching out for or that we should specifically address. Additional community members that we can engage with, understanding who are trusted messengers, who are trusted community leaders, and building relationship with them so that way we are not dictating the message, but that we are being responsive to needs and to existing relationships so that we are guests and that we are being able to be responsive to the information that people are willing to trust and share with us. We like to do community meetings. We like to have informational materials and activities that are in dual languages. And we like to have multiple communication mediums and platforms. And if we find that our approach is not quite resonating or landing well, again, pivoting, finding out what isn't working, and then making an adjustment so that it does come across more appropriately, better received, and we are seeking to meet the community needs. We really want to make sure that we are there in person as groups are comfortable, but that we also provide virtual participation as desired. And this really is a hallmark of the CivicWell approach to collaboration and community engagement, that we look to our community partners, that we understand that they have expertise and deep relationships with their residents and community members, and that we are a partner with them in addition to being a collaborator.
Excellent. Okay, and then the last question is kind of a two-parter and part comment, part question. So these grants are intended to be partnerships with the state and the regional block grantees. As part of the grant, you'll attend monthly meetings with the department and the statewide support entity to ensure that you are supported in your work. So if you were to receive funding, what immediate support would you need from the department or the statewide support entity to begin your work? And then what additional support do you envision needing as your work progresses?
So if Elizabeth and team, if I may, I'll jump in again. So what we're thinking about, and like I mentioned earlier, was tapping into the team's network and understanding. So the round one awardees are in the process of initiating their projects. And we're really looking to them to share with us any lessons learned they may have, any advice on developing a successful program. Granted, it's early in the game, they may be, or early in the process, they may be thinking, I don't know what a successful program looks like just yet. But that information is really important. If there's any lessons learned, we really want to hear that. We think that having interactive meetings with the grantees is going to be huge. Just being able to talk to people who are also going through the process as well, to, what's frustrating, what's going well, just having that network of support is huge. And then also being able to coordinate among various agencies as we are ready to start the permitting process, as we're starting to explore our CEQA process, et cetera. And then something else that we're thinking about is if there's any outreach document templates that we can lean on, borrow, get reference for. So that's something that we are really excited for the statewide support entity to help facilitate and provide us access with to the other grantees. And then as we move forward, specifically from the Nature Conservancy, we would love to hear information or provide or get data about habitat and monitoring best practices, to possibly review our plans, monitoring approaches, provide us with any feedback as how we might go about it in an effective or, you know, best way possible. Are we tracking the benefits correctly? And then from Self-Help Enterprises, we would love to get any additional engagement advice. So any feedback on, you know, our approaches. We're pretty savvy, but there's always something that we could learn from or adapt. So again, looking at our outreach and engagement plan, giving us feedback there, and then also, frankly, support through distribution of their networks, of our events, of our activities. If they could help send out the network through their network in the region, just letting people know that we're having events or that we're looking for input or we're looking for engagement, just amplifying our network would be amazing.
And may I interject? I know that the questions haven't gone towards habitat, but I do want to provide some opportunity for Logan to talk, since I know, you know, she has quite a bit of experience on this too. Sorry to put the spotlight on you, Logan.
That's all right, Elizabeth. So yeah, I mean, I think as far as Sequoia Riverlands Trust's role to be able to support the Westlands Water District and the partners on a project by project basis. So from the beginning, we're in for collaboration, for outreach, but as those projects do develop, my staff are prepared to be able to engage if it's like monitoring related, some of the things that were mentioned in the presentation, any of the implementation where like the skills and experience that we bring as an organization are uniquely suited. In addition to holding conservation easements, we're also a land manager on multiple thousands of acres. We've done a lot of restoration projects, and we own and operate 7 different nature preserves that are public access. And so I think there's lots of different ways that as a land trust, Sequoia Riverlands can plug in as those projects get developed.
Thanks.
Haley.
Yeah, I wanted to just add, you know, one of our goals of the program is to build the network beyond those who do receive grants. So, you know, if you do or don't receive funding in this round of grants, we're available to connect you to our partners and help. And we're trying to build a body of practice and kind of a network of practitioners that can, you know, help support each other through this really, really new field of work. So just a standing offer beyond this individual interview, and we're here to help however we can.
Thank you.
So with that, I think that's a great place to end. We've got about 2 minutes left, so I will give you those 2 minutes of time back. Thank you all so much for spending the time to talk with us. It is really helpful to us to actually hear the project that you envision. Besides just reading it on a piece of paper, you really help to bring it to life. So I really appreciate that. I do want to let you know it is a very competitive round. And we will get back to you. We are aiming to announce awards in June, so it shouldn't be too long before you hear from us. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. We appreciate your time as well.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Adios.